doing what you did at Drummond had to help.
You know, I can't, like for myself, I can't claim to have invented any of this. It all come from Dave, from Skip, from Mike Dory, all these people who took the time and were willing to, and Bob. I still learn crap today. You know, it's like I said, we dive with giants, man. These guys, I'm but a humble 2.4 gigahertz. What can I say?
Well, it is good to see everyone. Standard modus operandi. DiveTribe meetings are recorded, so mind your P's and Q's. This will be recorded for posterity. If you ever want to join the recording, it's posted up on the DiveTribe homepage, and you can check it out at any time. They're all posted up there with the private links for everybody. Couple updates from me on a few different things in terms of life and projects and all of that stuff. It is oh god, I don't even know what the date is today. It's like the first week of June already. I let you guys know, most of you, I think, I don't remember if it was during the DiveTribe or not. I am going back under the knife at the end of the month. So from the 27th of June, likely throughout all of July, I am not going to be in the shop. Jason, however, will be coming in. So if there's like a standard parts order, in theory, there shouldn't be any problems getting it out. But if there's like specific technical questions that you need answered prior to ordering, or if you're looking for parts or you have questions, while I would like to say I will be communicative while I recover, I can't guarantee it. So just bear that in mind for the future. 27th is when I fly to Texas, and I'll basically be out of the shop from then. Back in Naples, I think around the 3rd week of July, and then probably on bed rest for at least another week after that. So that is what we've got going on from that perspective. From a business perspective, I'm pretty excited. I grabbed the old shop that I had next door. So I've actually expanded because I was beginning to burst a little bit at the seams. So now we've got more room to expand for inventory. I have, as I mentioned before, 20 RC submarines that came from overseas that are waiting for me in US Customs in Miami right now. In theory, any day I should be able to go and pick those up. So probably next week, and I'll have those all laid out and on display for everyone, so you can see. In theory, though, this isn't going to be the kind of thing where like you see stuff and you'll be like, oh yeah, I'll take this, that, and the other thing. Go ahead and send me an invoice. I need to go through them to make sure that they're in sellable condition. And because I've got a lot going on, that probably won't happen until after I get back. But I'm going to try and be as forthcoming with information, photos, videos, all that kind of fun stuff before I go as I possibly can be. So that's exciting. I also picked up some interesting projects. So, you know, we've got our little world of RC submarines going on, but over the course of the last couple of months, I've actually been in contact with and approached to consult for no less than 3 different companies that are looking to build autonomous ocean-going submarines. So we are at the point now where I am in partnership with one of them that has some really exciting technology that we're hoping to develop together jointly that will, in theory, allow for unlimited range for an autonomous ROV. It will not require any sort of infrastructure to recharge. So that's super exciting. that project is going to be going on. I'm going to try and get as much done with that as I can. And just, you can see that some ever so small bodies back there. Those are going to be the bodies of these submarines. 12-inch diameter. We've got you know, just a little motor that's going to be driving it. So the size of like a coffee canister, 48 volts, 2000 watts. I'm hoping this is gonna push it along fairly smartly. It'll have a 50 amp lithium polymer battery pack, 48 volt battery pack, that will form the primary electrical battery system, and that of course will be recharged en route as it goes. So super excited to keep that going. And of course, in the meantime, I have promised everybody who has already contracted with me to get their builds finished up. And I've got my board over there. I'm down to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 now in my queue. Yeah.
That vehicle you're working on, is that the scale?
Is it to scale?
Is the prototype 1 to 1?
It'll be, yeah, one to one. Yeah, exactly. This prototype, its primary purpose is to prove out the technology. If the technology proves out, it can be implemented not only in you know, submarine vehicles, but any ocean-going vehicle or any stationary oceanary object such as a buoy. You know, there's a lot of challenges with solar power, and a lot of these buoys use solar power to charge them. And this, in theory, will be able to replace that technology.
So this is not somebody's answer to the Soviet Poseidon, is it?
No, this is not anything to do yet with defense or anything. This is purely scientific, you know, goodness of the universe, green energy sort of research project right now. But you never know. We'll see how it all pans out. But yeah, excited about that. I've never worked with a motor of that size. It'll be interesting to get it all bolted together. So it's PVC pipe. It's like 3/8 of an inch thick, and I'll have an 8-inch tube on the inside that'll serve as an equipment tray, and then a 10-inch for the body for the one project, and then the other one is a 10-inch equipment tray with a 12-inch body. So a little bit different scale than I'm typically used to working with. And the one submarine will even be more that I haven't used before, because it'll actually have a hydrogen cell power plant. If you really want to talk about exciting stuff, like we have a 300 watt hydrogen fuel cell that's going to be installed in this bad boy. Wow, it is raining like crazy outside. All right, hey, what else do I have going on before I turn things over? I've been playing around with this. I'm pretty stoked about it. I think I might put it in the Type 21 build. Initially, years ago, when I did that big OTW Type 7, I wanted to put operational exhaust smoke in it. And some of you guys have played around with that, you know, where they have this like little, for lack of a better term, oven, and you dump oil in there, and it burns it, and then the smoke comes out the stack, and there's like a 12-volt motor that blows it out. Well, obviously the problem with that with submarines is everything gets wet when it dives. And so I've been playing around with these, and I'm pretty excited. I think this is going to work. This is an ultrasonic atomizer. You've probably seen them in like those ornamental fountains and stuff like that. But it's a little 12-volt unit, and I've got it all rigged up where if we get it floating at the right height, it actually blows out a really significant amount of water vapor that looks a lot like diesel smoke. So I'm pretty stoked about this. The cool thing is, if it's 12 volts, you can actually hook this up to your electronic speed controller and have proportional smoke coming out of the side of the boat. So we'll see how that works. If it works, we'll make little modules that people will be able to connect in their boats. So that's lots of fun. Steve, this is for you. Finally got this finished up for you. Is that going to focus?
Nice.
Yeah. 35th scale figures. I got two here for you. This guy's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's printed on my resin printer. I'm kind of addicted to it, actually. So that's really cool. And then what I'm gonna do, let's see here. I think if I flip this, I'm gonna do that, get out of here. I gotta flip my camera around somehow. Here we go. I've managed to put a little bit of time into the version 3 cylinders. This prototype is almost ready for testing. I just wanted to show it to you because I'm pretty stoked about it. So this was like the Mark 1 prototype in the background. It used a pinch valve for a vent because I wanted to do away with all of the linkages. In theory, everything kind of worked out good. And what I wanted to do was be lazy and use Dave's like excellent cast resin like end caps. But then it started turning into like a hybrid thing where I was bolting on parts to existing parts, and then I was doing a lot of like workarounds, and it just wasn't coming together for me. So these are all custom caps, external brushless motors with full-size servos, because the idea behind this is you're going to be able to use this in almost any size boat, because the ballast tank will be 3.5, or 3 3/4 inch diameter. These pump bulkheads are actually two pieces. So you've got the pump bulkhead, and then you've got this ring that goes on, and the ring is independent. So you can put whatever size you want, just to expand the length of the ballast linkage, and that takes care of it. But what I kind of like about this is it's nice and tidy. So we got the motors coming through, we got twin speed controllers, brushless speed controllers on the bottom, and these are all riding on these rods. So it's like the OTW system. So your equipment tray can be cut to whatever size you want, but it's set up so obviously it fits nicely in there, but you can mount, pitch controllers and BLMs, and, to the top, to the bottom, to the side. You can string cables through all of the holes and everything. The bottom is kept open intentionally in case of a leak. So if it does fill, you're not hurting anything. And instead of a single air pump, it uses two in parallel. So it should, obviously, in half the amount of time, evacuate the ballast tank. And I did that intentionally because this will go up to 3 3/4 inch diameter of whatever length you want to put in there. And then the other side, this is set up for a big 3300 lithium polymer battery pack, which you can see nestles nice underneath there. But again, you could go with a pair of 1500s and cut that in half, top and bottom, and you got lots of room to mount remote switches, and then 2 forward servos as well. So you have 2 in the front, 2 in the back. These are universal front and back, so it cuts down on the parts. And yeah, that's kind of it. I'm pretty stoked about it. Hopefully next week I'll have it in the water. Just need to finish installing all the bits and components and throw it in the test tank and see if it actually works. And then this I showed to you guys before. This, if it works, is going to be pretty slick. This is those air membranes. So I've got 2 together for increased flow. So rather than using a mechanical snorkel valve, this uses these membranes. When they get wet, they become impermeable to air and water. And then when they dry, it takes about 5 or 10 seconds for it to dry out. Then it becomes permeable to the air again. So hoping this will be much easier, you know, to mount for those people, those crazy people out there who absolutely have to have static diving. This will allow the implementation of that, even though I do not recommend that setup for anybody in their boats. One last thing, well, I got a couple things. I got a skipjack that I'm working on. It's got to have a 3.5-inch OTW cylinder in it. It fits really cool. It works really, really well. I'm pretty excited to see how that's gonna work overall. And then kind of a unique setup for driving this 77 scale Nautilus, a couple of watertight boxes and a custom ballast tank that I made that will also allow you to mount the SETI couches in the side there so that you can see those. And then last but not least, this is one of the pieces, you guys probably recognize it, of the new Alvin 3D files. So this just came off the printer. I got 2 more pieces at home on my other printer and should make for a really cool boat. You know, it'll probably end up being about 14 or 16 inches long. So just kind of the thing that you can grab with one hand and chuck in the pool and just have a ton of fun driving around.
So what scale are you making it to start out with?
I think it works out to 1/12 scale, but obviously you can scale it to whatever you want.
Sure. You
Yeah,
know,
originally it was 1/8, which is, I believe, the same scale as the FX models one, that previous build that I did.
Yeah.
But the hull needed to be sectioned into like 12 parts in order to fit on most printers. And so I just thought it was going to be too much for most people to, print and put together and do a good job, because that's a lot of gluing and splicing and filling and all of that stuff. So people, if they want to do that, they can cut this one apart. They can slice it in their own software and make it fit to whatever size they want. That's it. Monopolized the conversation for long enough. I can turn it over to everybody else now.
When do you think the sub drivers will be produced or go out for mass production?
So I told you guys this before. It's going to be available in 2 different configurations. One is kit form, which is going to be highly incentivized in terms of pricing. And I'm going to have comprehensive instructions. So in theory, all I need to do is throw this together. So that should be done next week. But the hard thing is I need to make instructions for people. That's going to take me probably the better part of a week alone to do obviously not full time, but to do a proper job of that. Not only for initial setup and installation, but for follow-up problem solving. You guys have no idea how much time I spend talking people through issues with their sub-drivers, 90% of which comes from, I'll use the word ignorance, but I don't mean it to come off that harshly. Not understanding how they work, not taking it apart, putting it back together, knowing where the wires go, why the modules are all connected. So this is going to force people to understand how it goes together and why. So that is why I'm doing it that way. I will also offer, for those people with infinite amounts of cash, a very, very, very expensive, fully assembled and fully tested subdriver. But it is going to be like literally double the price. So that option will be out there. So back to your question. Obviously, I'm in like a bad spot right now. I've got like 3 weeks left before I can't do anything at all.
Right, I understand.
And then I'm out for like a month. So if I can get this put together and get all of my photos and everything, then while I'm recovering, I can pick away on a computer and make instructions. But if I can't, then it's going to be it would, so like mid-August would be when I would be able to probably start offering these for sale.
How big is
Just
that?
because,
Well, how big's the head snorkel valve? Is it going to be able to fit up under the sails, or?
this little unit thingy right here. Like this is the snorkel valve. And it's, I'm going to say like an inch by inch and a half. It's not going to fit in the sail of a permit, you know, or a skipjack or, you know, anything like that. So there's going to be some downfalls, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. I do not recommend by any stretch of the imagination whatsoever that anybody ballast their boats negatively. So I don't feel bad that you might not get a snorkel. And if you don't like that, then we can work together and we can build one, or you can build one yourself. That's just the way it is.
Bob, I like the new W2Cs. It's the next step because you use standard servos. This is a good way. Otherwise, people always try to have micro systems, small parts. It's really a pain in the ass. This is good that you have 4 servos now. You are really, this is a good way.
Well, I mean, and this obviously, like was said before, this is all built on the backbone of people who came before me. So, you know, the core of this subdriver was, you know, engineered, you know, long ago by David Merriman, and all I did, more because I'm lazy than innovative, I redesigned it for ease of manufacture and ease of assembly and ease of maintenance. So, you know, it's just going to be a little bit easier. Every one of Dave's cylinders were like a work of engineering art. You know, I took a look at his equipment trays and they were like all of that metal cutting and trimming and riveting and soldering. And I was just like, holy cow. It's incredible that he managed to populate the entire hobby with these things. So I felt the need was out there for something a little simpler. And in theory, you know, if it goes over well, then it's all about, you know, scale. If I can scale up production, then it can become even cheaper because I can start mass producing versus individually producing each one of these kits.
Bob.
Yeah.
I had ordered that that German sub, the 30th scale type 7.
Yep.
And I'm not in a hurry or anything. I was just curious. Any because you told me it was going to take a while to get that. It comes from England.
Yep. So in that initial email, I think he was quoting like 10 to 12 weeks or something like that. And we're probably getting pretty close, but I did email him on Friday, and I think he said the only thing he's waiting for right now is the brass photo etch. So it's almost ready.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I still have a Nautilus to build, so I got plenty of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Bob, is this 1 to 30 scale, type 7, or 1 to 32nd scale?
That's the OTW 132nd scale type 7.
Okay, because he talked about 1 to 30. That's a little bit confused me.
Yeah. No, it's the 32nd scale.
Hey, Bob, I've got a question for today.
Okay.
All right. I'm finishing up on the pressure hull on my Engel Typhoon. And I've done the lids like you did with the polycarbonate and such. What do you use for an adhesive for the rubber coating gasket?
I just used simple RTV and it worked really good. But I will say, and Dave has brought this up before, I really like this Permatex stuff. It comes in different, like in theory, there's like gray and blue and black, and each one is supposed to have a very specific purpose. But for what we're using them for, they're basically the same. But it's Permatex is gasket maker. And the thing I like about it is when it dries, it's not so malleable. It's not so mushy, flexible. So it just holds things down and more like an adhesive versus like a silicone rubber. But like RTV silicone is what you're after.
What about that that rubberized super glue? I saw that you used that on something, and I finally got some, and I'm hoping to use that.
Yeah, I mean, I use it all the time. It's back over on the other side there, but not for gluing, like rubber parts together. You need to have that flexibility, right? Because when that lid squishes down on that gasket, everything is gonna move. And even though that black CA has rubber particles in it, all that does is it reduces a little bit of the brittleness of the CA glue. It doesn't allow for flex. So for gluing down gaskets, I would recommend gasket maker or RTV silicone.
If I could jump in on this a little bit, CA adhesives are very failure prone in shear and shock. And as Bob alluded to, the rubber is in there just to mitigate the possibility of failure when subjected to shear or shock. But when you glue it down, it's CA. Don't think you got an easy thing to part later at your leisure.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Bob.
yeah, you bet, Victor. So yeah, like Frank, play around with that black stuff. Like try gluing stuff together. You'll see the difference. When you glue parts together, like glue them and then try and snap them apart. You can see how far you can move it before it'll let go. It gives you just a little bit more wiggle room before it shatters and breaks. Is really what it does.
I use it to glue my holes together.
Yeah, sure. But now that's the plastic that you're talking about, like the 3D printed.
Yeah, the ASA.
So an interesting thing that gosh, who was it? Was it Don Meadows was telling me that he does? He bought a 3D printing pen, for kids. It like extrudes plastic and they like make stuff in the air with it. But he got one of those and loaded it up. Now he's using PLA and that's what these pens are designed for, but maybe you can get a different one. But anyway, so you would use it like you would like a hot glue gun, but you're using actual plastic that would be melting and fusing everything together versus using an adhesive. So that might be something that would be interesting to try out too.
Yeah. No, my Columbia hull, I printed it 6 layers, 6 perimeters thick, which ended up being like 2.8 millimeters thick.
Okay.
So anyway, it acts and feels exactly like a GRP hull for all intents purposes.
Yeah,
And
sure.
for something that's 93 inches long, it flexes and all this stuff from end to end and so forth. But when you put the top to the bottom and lock it together, it's like a monocoque frame, so it's all rigid, and it's really very, very strong. And with all the trips I've made to the pool trimming this thing, I haven't noticed any structural failure points or anything developing at this point in time. So it seems very solid.
Good. Yeah. Good to know. Do you do any like preparation of the seams, the joints in advance? Like I know what I do, but I'm gonna ask you to kick it off.
I do rough it with some sandpaper, like some 220 or something like, or 60 grit or 80 grit sandpaper, even just rough it before I put the parts together. But I use that black CA, Starbond CA, and I mean when you glue those parts together, you better be right, or because you ain't getting them apart without destroying something. So
yeah, I was just gonna bring that up for everybody, just as a reminder. Anytime you glue any 2 parts together, I highly recommend roughing up the mating surface. And I'm sure Dave somewhere in that head of his has the actual like ratio that it does, but the difference between a smooth surface and a rough surface, you like double the surface area or something crazy like that by roughing up the mating surfaces versus just gluing smooth parts together.
Yeah, Bob, and another thing that I've seen you use, this is with PLA, of course, on your 3D files. If you take a soldering iron, put a broad tip on it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's heavy enough material on the inside, you can follow the seams with that and actually melt these if you want a little more strength. Also, that pen you're talking about works quite well with the PLA. If you go inside just like you would do with your soldering iron and let it get good and hot, it'll actually bring the two products together, and that does help as well, along with the CA, of course. So
yep, you bet.
I've got a product question, Bob.
Okay.
And, I'm in the middle of that Disney Nautilus right now. I'm just about ready to start doing the paint work on it. But, I tried working over those lenses or those doll eyeballs that come with the kit. And I notice on your website, you have those for sale. Now, is that a better quality than what those, because these things are not going to work out very well, I don't think. Not the little ones anyway.
All right, so yes, on that topic, and for anybody interested in that Nautilus, which is a stupendous little kit, by the way. So as a quick background, it was originally mastered by Scott Brodeen, who is an exceptionally talented individual out of California. He's done a ton of works for movie miniatures and that kind of thing. And he engineered both the 16-inch and 31-inch Nautilus kits that are currently on the market being offered by Masterpiece Models, and that I offer through my store. And he also worked with Jim Key on the big 66-inch Nautilus. So back in the day, Scott manufactured and sold all of the kits himself. And the quality was, God, it was amazing. Like he'd pull the parts out and there would be no flash. What you could pick off the flash with your fingernail. That's how little it was. It was like tissue paper, if there was any. But what ended up happening, Scott had a bunch of health issues, and then he ended up selling the product line, licensing it, I should say, to Masterpiece. And Masterpiece uses, let's say, more efficient but less quality manufacturing techniques. And they also took some shortcuts in regards to the product. So one of the shortcuts is these lenses, and they are Google Eyes that you get from like the craft store. If you extract them properly with exceptional care and in a very, very sharp hobby knife, they make beautiful little lenses. The issue is, number one, that's hard to do, and number two, unless something has changed, Masterpiece sends the wrong size out. So the little ones are too small. There's like a 0.5 millimeter gap around all the outsides. And I think the same thing with the big ones. So you can make them work, but it's a pain, and they don't look quite right. So what I did, because I build so many of these, is I created molds and I cast in clear resin those floodlights. And so there's no cleanup, there's no nothing. You just take them out, put them in the hole, and hit them with a little drip of thin CA, and you're done. So they look a little bit different because they're solid cast as opposed to, like a thin plastic lens. So it's almost like looking through a magnifying glass. They don't have the same look, but they still look really, really cool. So in answer to your question, yes, I make the product. It's not the same thing. They're not thin plastic bowls. They're solid cast resin, and they just drop in.
that's not a liability, with the exception of the wheelhouse observation windows and the observation windows down in the salon area. All of the other lenses are frosted. They certainly were on the miniatures.
Yeah, yep,
So
yep, yep.
that's a clear coat, well doped with flattening agent. It doesn't matter if it's a thin-walled hemisphere or not. You're good to go. And as I understand it, Rodine's kit, even now as it's issued, has reasonably high quality domes for the wheelhouse and the salon.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Yeah. Yeah. So did that answer your question, Rob?
Yeah, yes, it did, Bob, and PayPal's on its way.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
My fingertips are so bloody from trying to cut those out with that X-Acto knife. You know, I couldn't see what I was doing for the amount of blood pouring out. So
I mean,
yeah, I'm definitely
I've,
gonna order them.
I've built probably 24 of those kits in RC and static display, and this muscle right here cramps, you know, because you're trying to hold it and cut this little tiny floodlight that's like 4 millimeters in diameter.
All right,
Yeah,
here's what you guys do instead of making it a self-sacrifice. You take a piece of sticky masking tape, you know, the brown stuff.
Yeah.
Just roll it into a little ball that's adhesive on both sides. You use that as a handle. And then you take a sanding block with 400 and you wet sand the thing until you get the desired amount of material removed. That saves your pinkies from the blade.
You can add, yeah, that would be one way of doing it. Sure.
Well, that's the way to do it.
I find that plastic is so thin that as soon as that white backing lets go, the edge just rolls under. And
hey, Bob,
yeah,
I'm just taking a guess here, being, you know, a model maker for a million years. If you took a brass tube and sharpen the edge and one that fits over it and just lightly tap it with a hammer, would it cut through that without shattering it?
It might. I don't remember if the dome wraps out. The high quality ones are flush. They come down and there's no lip. But I think the ones actually that Masterpiece they're the cheap Chinese ones. Well, they're probably all cheap Chinese, but they roll out. That's a super interesting thought. There you go. For anybody interested.
But that applies if you're removing a flange.
Yeah.
That's not what we're doing here.
No, you so make it big enough to leave a flange if you want. You know what I'm saying?
No.
You want to take off the flange or you want to leave the flange?
There shouldn't be a flange as delivered.
Right.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say the ones on the sheet, because I have that model too.
Oh.
I was good because they're vacuum formed.
Listen, I think what you had is one of the knockoffs of his kit. Remember, what was it?
Oh, Total Immersions?
Total Immersions knocked off that kit. Maybe that's what you got.
No, I got a Masterpiece. I bought it from Bob.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're all on a sheet like they're vacuum formed.
Yeah, then you're
no,
that's the way I would go.
We're talking about you're talking about the windows. We're talking about the floodlights, those little Google eyes that you got.
Right. That's what he's having trouble with.
Yeah.
The lenses that go over the illuminating bulbs.
Yeah, the bigger ones, no problem.
Yeah.
The salon and the 4 on the side. It's those little Google eyes, the 1/4 inch roughly.
Yeah, if you took a piece of brass tubing that just slipped over that and just sharpened the brass tubing on a sanding disc, you know, around the edge, 45 it or whatever, just slip it over and tap it with a hammer, it should stamp it right out on a hard surface so it doesn't shatter.
Well,
Yeah,
I could see where that would have worked, but I'm kind of too late now.
Well, I'm going to order.
I'm going to have to order some more.
I'm going to Bob anyway too. So they're in your store, Bob?
Yeah. Clear cast floodlight lenses.
Okay. You'll be hearing from PayPal from me too.
Look at that. I got 2 sales. Totally worth coming today. Sold like
Sale.
20 bucks worth of stuff. All right. How are we doing for time? I don't even know what time it is.
About another
Okay.
20.
20. We're good. We're good. We're good. All right.
We got time. I got a question, Bob.
Okay.
On your steampunk Neptune, okay, that I believe Steve has now, correct?
Nathan.
Oh, Nathan.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, steampunk. So you painted the body, that ABS yellow body. Did you scuff it first, or you just hit it with paint?
I scuffed it. So that and I could see, because I think Steve posted some pictures recently. So it takes paint well. So I used like a 200 grit sandpaper and just roughed up the plastic, and then I used a plastic bonding Home Depot spray paint.
The fusion paint, crayon.
Fusion paint. Yep. And that bit pretty well. The only thing, if you're gonna paint that, is the window guards for the side aren't plastic. They're rubber, and they don't take paint. I could not figure out how to do. I roughed them up, I primed them, and they just would not take paint. So I'm sure Steve knows exactly what I'm talking about. Like the paint.
It's flaked off on a couple of those grates.
I
Yeah,
would just
not a big deal.
I would either rebuild them or take them off altogether, to be brutally honest.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
The paint scheme I'm going for, and I'm doing something a little unusual too, but I think the yellow, if I leave them that yellow, will be okay.
Okay. All right. Good.
So, but it's nice, thanks for letting me know, because that I was thinking of hitting it with like a 00 steel wool or something to scuff it. As opposed
Yeah,
to
I mean that would probably be fine too. Sure. Yep.
just to get that bite without really, not hitting it with 80 grit or something like that.
No. That would make a mess. I went a little more coarse because I used a filler primer as well. So.
Okay. And since everybody's asking about product, the Vanguard, where is it now? China, or did it make its way? It got lost in UPS.
In theory, it should be almost here now. I saw that Matt had sent me a photo of the receipt. I'll check it and see if the tracking number is on there, and if it is, I'll be able to track it for you.
I'm like I said, I'm in no rush either. I just think it's UPS is becoming the bane of our existence. Between sending fork truck through the tubing and some funny stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's anybody here from the UK, but there's like, they're going through Brexit right now, and like all sorts of like challenging things are going on there right now.
Well, Matthew posted some videos on Facebook earlier today of him running his Vanguard. And I responded by saying, I could be doing the same thing, Matthew, if I had a cylinder.
Oh.
with a smiley face afterwards.
Uh-huh.
So in good nature, but it's getting a little tedious.
I understand. Yeah, I completely understand. And I don't know what's going on for it, because it seems like every time I talk to him, it was always, ready to go. So I'm not sure where he's at and what he's doing with your cylinder, because I think, or is he still waiting on the electronics from Tim? Is that the latest delay?
Yeah, he fried the boards.
Yeah. To be honest, Maury, if he's ready to go for everything except that, I would just tell him to ship it as it is, and we'll worry about getting you some electronics afterwards.
Yeah.
I've got a spare OTW dive controller here that we could probably hook you up with, because they use the same sort of system.
And I appreciate that, Bob, but I don't want to be a problem about it. It just goes on and on, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand.
And Matthew's a great guy, so, you know, I'm not trying to push him.
It's the challenge, and I've lived it. That when you switch from being a hobbyist to a business owner, it's an exponential leap in complication and workload, you know. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying, you know, it's a big difference, and I think that's what Matt's finding now.
I think he's experiencing that real time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
I talked to Matthew last days, and he told me that the electronic boards not working, they're burned somehow. He told me in his workshop, and they have some massive problems with UPS. That's what he told me. So what we talk about. So the boards are a little bit complicated with solid that they stand, but I don't know what happened to the design. This was made from Tim, I think Tim
Garrett.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, and the challenge with this is, you know, you get exceptionally talented people, but again, you take that step from, you know, hobbyist to a vendor, and now all of a sudden, you know, when things probably, you know, would have worked for you and what you built, and if something goes wrong, you just kind of like fix it. Now all of a sudden it's a big problem, because, you know, if there was an issue with the 20 boards that you sent out, now you've got 20 people that you need to you know, make whole again. So yeah, it's you know, both of them are really talented people, but they're just kind of dipping their feet into the world of you know, being a supplier, a bona fide vendor to the hobby, and they're going through these teething pains.
If I could take a minute and do a shout out to Sub Ed on my Neptune. On the blog there that everybody's kind of getting into, he sent me some pictures. He took the time out to do that for me, and I just want to let you know, Ed, that it was perfect. Yeah, the weights, the way yours are, just matched up perfect to my boat. So, and I appreciate you stepping up there for me.
That's the thing that I most admired and respected and was fearful of, was every time someone would ask a question on the forums, Dave Merriman would write a novel replete with like 85 illustrative photos in response to the question, which was awesome, because I didn't want to be held to the same standard.
Bob, do we will offer workshops for beginners that they come to you in your workshop? I don't know how to open a WTC, how to assemble a coupling with the shaft or something like this, or how to use this and this. Is this not an idea? Or I don't know, would be nice.
You know, it is. And there's actually, you know, a lot of networking tools that I've worked with in the past, but more because of COVID, these have gotten really developed. So the challenge is time. You know, there's 100 things that any one of us could be doing that you know, could make money, but they all take time. And something like what you're talking about is exceptionally labor intensive. So what I would prefer to do would be to go through that exercise once and be able to copy it for whoever needs it. So step one is the release of my book, and that's I just finished talking to the publisher, and in theory we're about 8 weeks out before it gets released, and that is a very, very high level overview of the hobby and you know, considerations when you're looking at your first RC submarine and what it's like to operate them and maintain them, and you know, all of this kind of stuff. So hopefully that'll help clear up my inbox from all of these people asking questions one at a time. So hopefully, even though it was like an 8-month investment on my part, it'll help, you know, for the future. And then I would do my best, and I ask, and everybody's actually done a pretty good job. If there's a specific topic that you feel would be worthwhile me going over in a video, I'll put a video out, and hopefully that would help people, you know, from all over on a specific topic. So yeah, workshops, you know, unless there was like a lot of people taking them at the same time, it would be pretty challenging, you know, to stop what I'm doing in the shop for things that are really making me money, and keeping me, you know, with food on the table, to do a 1-hour session with somebody. Like, I'd be embarrassed to charge them what I think it would be worth my time to do that one-on-one. I do make the exception though, if somebody takes the time to come all the way down to my shop, specifically if it was a long way, I'll make the time. John Van Sciver was just here the other day, and I spent about 3 hours with him going through his ARC model cylinder and boat. So that was the exception.
Bob, did you ever cover in your book or in any of your YouTube things, when you put the submarine away for the winter, things that you do to store it? Is there something around for that?
It's in the book. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep, you bet. But I don't think I've actually done a video on like post-season maintenance. I know Dave in the past had an article that was out talking about that, probably in one of the like Cabell reports or something like that.
Yeah, because I'm curious about sopping up any moisture, and do you take the ends off the tube? You know, stuff like that. It'd be good to know.
It's pretty much like a car you put into storage. You drain the oil, but in our case, you open up the cylinder, you leave it open, you take out the battery, you do what's right depending on what the chemistry of the battery is. You oil everything up, non-petroleum oils. You slather it on, you put it away in a dark, dry place.
You would be amazed at how many people, and I apologize if I'm making fun of anybody here inadvertently, come to me and say, I had this great idea. You know, if I put a charging port in the side of my cylinder, I'll never have to open it up. I'll just charge it when it's right in the, well, Dave's making the poof, and it could do that. But the thing is, if so much as 1 or 2 drips of moisture got into that cylinder and you don't notice, all of that moisture just sits there, and it grabs onto your sensitive little electronics, and it rots them for like the months that it sits until you crack it open, you know, next time, and then you wonder why it's not working. So after every run, open up the cylinder, take it out, charge the battery, and leave it open until you're absolutely sure everything is dry. So there you go, a little preview. Never, ever keep it sealed.
Something you might want to mention would be on these LiPo batteries. Having been in the RC aircraft situation, you want to, I always balance my packs when I'm charging them. And then when I get through, if I'm out for 20 minutes, I'll come back in and I'll discharge the battery to about 50%. And if you're going to store them, you want to make sure you get the discharge down and balance it along the way. That way your batteries are going to last you a lot longer, and it's a lot safer than just charging them to full and then putting them away. You want to drop them down a little bit and balance it along the way as well.
Well, that's fine for high performance items, particularly aircraft and racing cars and stuff. All of my lipos are now nice and puffy because I don't do any of the things you advocate. Yet I'm still getting hours of run times out of them. I don't get too anal when it comes down to the lithium polymer chemistry, other than avoiding dropping them and overcharging or over discharging. Other than that, I just bang them up. I haven't balanced these things in decades. Yeah, they're all puffy. They're probably down to 60%. But in our application, 60% of 1500 milliampere hours is more than you need.
Well,
It doesn't hurt.
differ with David there. I've seen these batteries, if they're not set properly, I've seen them go on fire just on the bench. I had one guy out at the field that just, he didn't care about them at all. And they were practically round. They started out rectangular, but he overcharged them or he undercharged them. And one day he left them sitting there on the bench while he was out flying, turned around, we had a massive fire on his bench. And one of them was from the battery that he just, he didn't take care of them. So, I'm going to disagree a little bit there that it's important to balance them out.
Did he leave them sitting in the sun?
No, they were undercover, but you got to be careful with them. And as an ex-fireman, I'm telling you, you better be careful with them, especially if you keep them in your house.
Yeah, I keep mine in a metal can.
Yeah,
Well, there are special bags made for LiPo and LiFo batteries.
Yep.
That seal tight, that are fireproof. So
now I want to tell you guys about the sick end of the spectrum. Not only do I balance charge them every time, but I also storage charge them at the end of every use. And not only that, I record all the numbers in the battery log for each of the batteries. So I'm probably at the sick end when it comes to care and maintenance.
You're sick, man.
You're discharging them.
I record the cell voltage, cell resistance, and final voltage, and I keep a history of that cell spreadsheet.
So you're discharging.
Right on, Ed. You're doing it right.
Well, I'm hoping over time I can actually know when a battery, by looking at the numbers drop, I'll be able to get a graph of the batteries going bad. I don't know. I'm just sick. What can I say?
Just as another, I don't dwell on this matter, but we had a guy that was charging his batteries in his garage, and he apparently went into the house and then came back out. But in the process, he wasn't balancing them. That's what they say anyway. But his garage caught on fire. He wound up dying in that fire. And it was all because of the LiPo battery systems. He just wasn't careful enough with it. So the only reason I'm talking that way is that they are dangerous if they're not taken care of.
In my experience, so this is my 2 cents. So it absolutely doesn't hurt anything to balance them out. In my experience, the typically the fires are caused by improper charging apparatus, especially when I first got into lithium polymer batteries. I got a lot of the very fancy batteries and chargers from Mike Caswell that were sourced out of China. They'd probably cost them a nickel, but they did not have the proper, built-in monitoring hardware. So that is how I had my first battery fire on my workbench in my garage. That was super exciting. So I think it's more so cheap chargers or improper charging technique, that causes the primary issue. So the moral of the story, what I'm trying to get at is don't cheap out on your battery charger. It doesn't hurt anything to, if you're plugging it in anyway, to plug in the balancing port as well. But don't buy a cheap charger. You know, get a proper computerized battery charger. And the beauty is you can charge any battery you want. Be it lead acid, nickel cadmium, nickel metal hydride, you know, lithium polymer, whatever. It'll do all of them, and it'll do it all safely.
And Bob, if it comes with a charger, don't use that charger.
Yeah, because you know they paid a nickel for that one. They're throwing it in for free.
Throw that charger away.
Hey, I learned something.
Sorry. This is
Go ahead.
A123, these leaf hippos. They have 2,500 milliamps, but now I use them here. There's the 18650 type. They have 3.4 amps. They're much smaller. And I have a company now in the Netherlands. They make me custom made what I want. And they're really good, ready to go and cheap. I never would use Lippos in my life, never. I saw in the flying airplane burning totally on the field when I was such a happening. It was really fun. And the guy was crying because it was a big one. It was 5,000 euros airplane. I don't know what's I don't know. So he was really crying. Something went wrong with the installation of the cables, I think. And come back to the chargers. Yes, buy a good one, a really good one. It's important for the batteries. And I always balance them, always, and on each charging, because it's better for the life and small amps to charge them. I can charge them with 2 amperes, 3 amperes, but I don't like this for the life of the battery and the chemical inside. It will become weak. That's it. That's my 3 cents.
All right, I need to go, guys. I have a meeting scheduled with Ed and Tom and Jeff and a whole bunch of other people. So I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna try this. I'm on my phone here, so I'm gonna try and allow somebody else to pick up. So I apologize if this ends. It's technical issue, and I'm not just being mean. Okay, here we go. Anybody hanging around want to take the reins? No,
I probably got to jump off.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right, sir. There you go.
Okay, guys, I use this charger. Sorry, this is from Hobby King. It's a 2-channel one. It's AC/DC channel, and you can. Okay, come on. Fuck off. No, but okay. Here are the parameters.